Hello. How are we doing? How we feeling? How we smelling? How are we? I'm great. So this is the first episode of a little show, podcast, question mark. I don't know. To be honest, this is completely, came to my mind out of boredom. But if people listen to me, I ain't mad at it. Thinking of calling it the Hyper Luxe Podcast because that's my Insta handle. And to me, it sounds cute. So, anyway, this is a concept that has been in my mind for about a year and a half now. It stemmed from me working in the mental health field. If you do not know, I was a case manager for a rehabilitation facility for quite a while. And my clients really enjoyed our weekly true crime groups that we would do, and another group that I would do called Real Relationships. And it was pretty much just me talking to them about recognizing toxic signs in partners and how to spot red flags before things became dangerous. So essentially, that's what I hope this will be, a weekly discussion where we can talk about topics varying from true crime stories to behavioral science. So if that is something that interests you, please continue listening and please contribute to the chat and suggest topics you'd find interesting to learn more about. So let's get into it. This topic comes thanks to Chi-Town Stand Up, Mr. Kanye West. Hello, hi. Mr. and Mrs. West, and that whole debacle, you feel me? Kanye has been in the news recently, going back and forth with Kim Kardashian. They're going through a divorce, and although I am not a fan of the Kardashians, I can see that Kim has gone through a lot in this relationship. And she is so desperate to move on from this divorce from Kanye, and for good reason. He has been smearing her name and reputation through the mud. And it has just been very, very messy. And I really feel for her. I really do. This in lies the topic, the hated ex syndrome. So what does that mean? The hated ex syndrome is a little play on words I came up with just for a partner who is exhibiting narcissistic behavior. The definition of NPD, for those that don't know, is an NPD, stands for Narcissistic Personality Disorder. It's a person who has excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. Narcissists feel the deep need to validate themselves and their shortcomings by shifting the blame onto other people. So although a narcissist craves attention and wants admiration for all they do, we know that. I feel like everyone recognizes that and understands that. You also need to understand that these people are extremely insecure about themselves and what they're able to bring to the table, which is why that they act the way that they do. They usually act in a grand manner, and they do this so that they can manipulate people's perception of how they view the narcissist. So going back to hated ex syndrome, a significant sign you are being tested by a narcissist is that they have many enemies and it will never be this person's fault as to why they are so disliked by all of these people. But if you listen to them, be aware of what they're saying. If you really listen, that they are subconsciously describing to you what they had done in that previous relationship. It's a tool to fuel the control the narcissist is lusting after. And usually they're typically making references to the most recent partner that they've had. Although, in all honesty, it can go as far back as the very first ex that they ever had. And now, Am I saying that everyone who has had a bad relationship or a horrible breakup with an ex is lying about the things that they've probably done? Of course not. It is just the way that they go about speaking about that particular person. For example, just to bring up my own relationship history, although I may not talk to my exes or like them, I could still think of things for each one, some redeeming qualities, and just, certain attributes that are positive about them and that I enjoyed while we were together. For example, when I was first dating my husband, and he and I spoke about our relationships as one does when you're beginning dating, it was very short, our explanations of our past relationships, regardless of what, he and I know now about our relationships. The introduction to our exes was very short. So it went something like, so I was with so-and-so for this many years, this many months. It just didn't work out between us. Nothing wrong with them necessarily. Just wasn't the right fit for me. Very simple. Very cut and dry response, right? It isn't a flashy statement. It's just, matter of fact. When a narcissistic personality type describes their past relationships, it will typically be in the early stages of a new relationship they're trying to begin. And it'll kind of go something along the lines of, so-and-so were so horrible to me. They were such a psychotic nutcase. They used to do this, this, and that. One time you wouldn't believe it. And then they said, blah, 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 blah. Do you guys see the difference? Sometimes victims will misinterpret excessive information from their abusers as a sign of the abuser feeling comfortable enough to open up about their hardships in the relationship. Over-explanation is a sign of deception. I'll say it again. Over-explanation is a sign of deception. Take this as one of your first major red flags of that blossoming relationship the person in question is trying to tangle you up in. And this will not be the only instance that you will be saying this behavior in your partner. It can also bleed into family and friend relationships. For example, if you guys have ever had a friend of yours or an ex who's brought up that their friend was horrible because they didn't do X, Y, and Z for them, same concept when it comes to how they talk about their relationships. Ultimately, it's just going to be a form of control that stems from them feeling and the feeling that all narcissists want to drain from their victims, which is pity. Because if you pity someone, they are seen as the victim of the poor circumstances that they were dealt. None of the blame is put onto them. And this leads victims to excuse poor behavior from the abuser because they are just dealing with, what that past person did to them. So they try to excuse it. And they kind of become competitive in a way because they kind of want to prove to that narcissistic abuser, hey, I'm different. I won't act like that. I can show you that I'm not like him or her. I can show you what real love is. I'll do everything that other one wouldn't do for you. If you see signs in your current partner, or even family members that might be behaving this way towards you, here are a few little helpful tips of advice that I could give you. So 1, Set boundaries. People who become upset at you when you set a boundary for yourself are the same people who benefited from you not having one in the first place, or not having any in the first place. So definitely practice boundary setting, and this will also boost your confidence because you will not only not want to settle for anything less, but you'll begin to handle any pushback that may occur. It'll be water off a duck's back for you, you know? Number 2, the way they react and handle situations is not your fault. Going back to what I said earlier on, a person suffering from hated ex syndrome is going to love playing the blame game with you. The interaction is not your fault, and just remember that it says much more about them and their state of mind than it does about yours. 3, confide in any close family, friends, or even neighbors that you might have if this particular situation turns abusive or dangerous. I think that there's a perception that abuse can only be physical, and that's obviously not the case, especially with my background in mental health. Abuse ranges from emotional, mental, physical, and if you are constantly being put down, called names, realizing you are preparing for fights before they even happen, just feel emotionally drained, that you're walking on eggshells all the time, it is definitely time for you to consider leaving. This is, of course, easier said than done, but a helpful trick I would have my clients do is to write an honest pros and cons list, and they didn't have to share the results with me. It was more so for them to recognize, what the relationship served for them, and if it was a healthy dynamic that they were in. During contemplation of leaving an abusive relationship, it's also crucial to have a strong support system behind you. So definitely look into that. Consider all of your options before leaving. It's one of the most dangerous times to leave an abusive relationship. When you do consider leaving, just be smart about how you're, implementing your plan. And to wrap up this last podcast, if this is even a podcast, we love hearing about drama between celebrities and the craziness that usually comes along with that. But honestly, guys, just, look closely and you'll see that these people have the same problems as us, just with a higher number in their bank account. Thank you, Diddy and Biggie, for sponsoring that message. And that was the first installment of this little something. I hope you found it interesting and informing. It was a little short, but like I said, it was my first one. So if you like it, you like it. Please tell me, and I will be happy to do more. This was kind of fun. Make sure if you liked it, let me know. And also comment down below your thoughts and opinions, as well as any other topics you'd like to hear more about. I appreciate you listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.